Okay, hey guys. Well, tonight, unfortunately, my good friend Jason had a family emergency. So I'm going to provide what information and entertainment that I can that would prove useful and interesting to you. Now, we will be talking about him a lot more, but we'd like to note in passing yes, Mr. Mueller he died at the age of 81. And also Chuck Norris, who died yesterday, I believe, or the day before at the age of 86. My older son, who was kind of a fan, was sort of shocked, because we all looked on Chuck Norris as a very healthy, vigorous individual. So it came as a surprise. So, but also, of course, got to talk about Iran. Now, I think the other thing that I'm seeing more of is I'm scanning the literature and watching videos and such is that there is what amounts to a propaganda war or a psyop, and the intensity of it seems to be increasing, and the outrageous claims seem to be increasing. Now, at the center of this, as strange as it may seem to some of you, I want to put a publication called Axios. Now, it's my understanding Axios tends to be left leaning. That's okay. And there was a piece about, see if I can find it here. Trump's team game planning for potential Iran peace talks. So the problem I'm having is that a few days ago, I thought I heard President Trump say unconditional surrender. Okay. But here we have proposed negotiations instead of an unconditional surrender. Now, I'm just going to throw in a speculation here as to what's going on, which kind of goes back to the complaint over Pete Hegseth asking in round numbers for another $200 billion to prosecute this war against Iran. $200 billion is a lot of money. And I thought, well, how could it be that much? And then somebody suggested, well, there are different theories. So, again, you have different sources. You don't know who to believe, who to trust, what's real. But in this corner over here, you got people saying, well, so far, the Americans have spent $12 billion bombing Iran. All right. So then however much money the Israelis have spent, just added on to that. Others have gone to the extreme and said, well, if you add it all up, it's closer to 100 billion, which to me is an unconscionable figure. And when you think of the process that we went through, the money that was spent to supply arms to Ukraine over time, 22, 23, 24, there were considerable amounts being cited under the Biden administration. Not that we should necessarily believe them, but these are the numbers that were being thrown around. So is this another grift of some kind when you're throwing around big numbers like this? Some people are suggesting as much. I'm reserving judgment. I'd like to see more information before I draw a conclusion about this. All right, so let me just get through this part here as reasonably as I can. All right, so according to the article from Axios, left-leaning, that any deal to end the war would require reopening the Straits of Hormuz, address Iran's stockpile of highly enriched uranium, and establish a long-term agreement on their programs. This is very different language from what we've heard President Trump utter in, quote, press conferences. So I don't know what to believe here. Now, they point out that there are some envoys they don't think very highly of who served as a go-between between Iran and the U.S., but still not. And Iran wants to cease fire and guarantees the war will not resume in the future, and they want compensation. So, frankly, under the circumstances, I don't understand why or how they think they're winning, but I would need to point out to you that these guys are still holding fast. You still have a parliament. They're still meeting. They're still enacting laws. And I'd say by now the Iranian government has figured out that they really have to lay low and avoid detection. So somehow they're communicating while managing to avoid being located by anybody. But that doesn't take away from the fact that there continue to be more um, more efforts by the Israelis to hunt down officials and kill them. That's ongoing. Efforts to get rid of these Basij people. That's ongoing. So there's another article about the people in the street and talking about how they want to believe that there'll be a revolution soon. Okay, but again, where are the guns? Where's the organization? Where are the people who know how to fight? They're still not there, as far as I can tell. So in the meantime, though, you have the U.S. I want to mention the ships that are on their way. That would be the Tripoli from Yokohama and the USS Boxer from San Diego. They're both remarkably similar ships. Let's see here. See if I can straighten this out for you. So the Tripoli is an American-class amphibious assault ship built in May of 2012, whereas the Boxer is a Wasp-class amphibious assault ship. So I'm not quite sure the distinction because they're both the same length, same beam, same complement. But what does stand out is the Boxer, as Steve Bannon had noted, seems to be the more capable ship. That's capable in sense of electronic warfare, the radars that they use. Yes, and the other thing is that the Boxer is designed to be able to handle a variety of complements for different missions, whereas the Tripoli seems to be a little bit more limited in scope in that regard. So I'm not quite sure how to regard this, but I mean, what does it signal to us when a so-called less capable ship is being sent out to do things, followed by a more capable ship? I'm sure there's a reason for it. I just haven't figured out what it is yet. And speaking of less capable, now there's this talk about something. Okay, I was in the Navy, just so I was there, came and went, did my time. I was a quartermaster. But the part here that should amaze us all is the reference to something called a littoral, Littoral, littoral combat ship. These are ships that are not, how should I say it? They had a very bad reputation. I think 6 or 8 of them were made. Half of them or more had to be retired before their service life was up. Well before their service life was up. The first problem was that these were made with aluminum, and it turns out aluminum is not a good choice of materials under stressful conditions at sea. So I don't know what inspired this choice, but American Navy went ahead with these. So as it turns out, there are just a couple of them left, and here's a picture. See if I can get this up here for you. Yep, there you go. So it's an odd-looking duck, as you can see. But the whole purpose here is that it has a shallow draft. I think 8 feet, if I remember correctly. It might be less. So yes, you're supposed to be able to operate inside in shallow waters close to shorelines. And, conceptually, that would have seemed to make sense. Well, as it turns out, here now is a place where it's needed. And the part that's really strange for anybody who follows this stuff is that this ship right here has been used as a platform for integrating, of all things, drone capability with missile capability. So the Navy seemed to be making a big deal out of this and saying that, look, it's the first time we ever did this. And so this is the, oh God, I have to find the name of it. But this littoral ship, fired drones from that stern there, one after another, until there was a swarm, and then that was integrated with another. I'm sorry, on my mind. It would help if Jason was here. The So it didn't. What I read did not explain where these missiles and drones ended up, but I think it's interesting because they would have been flying at different speeds, so coordinating them would have been a bit of a challenge. Okay. Meantime, there's another thing here. If I can just take them a moment. There is, all right, so everybody's been talking about Karg Island. Oh boy, it's going to be Karg Island, right? And so you have now between the two amphibious assault ships, the Tripoli and the Boxer, about 5,000 Marines in expeditionary force. And the notion was that, that they'd be landing on Karg Island. Maybe not, if I may. So let's put you back to bed. And instead, we may be going to this place, Grand Tubman Island. Never heard of the place. Well, it turns out there's a Grand and a Lesser Tubman Island right in the middle of the Strait of Hormuz, upstream of the strait itself. And it's considered strategic. Iran owns it. They have done stuff on it. And okay, so now they're going to, now the plan is for us to invade it and set up shop there. The only problem has been that the Iranians have been attacking that island anyway. They've sent quite a few missiles there. And given that they probably still have quite a few more left, yeah. So I just need to rub it in again. You know, if you've been watching the other times that we've done this, it's the current thing I'm trying to say. They have deeper capabilities, and they prepared for us a long time ago. So in my mind, there's no question that you have bunkers that have still not been found, that have quite a few drones in them. And the Iranian government is carefully rationing the use of these weapons. And so you also heard that there were 2 of these long-range missiles that nobody thought they could fire that were aimed at Diego Garcia. Luckily, one was stopped. The other didn't quite get there, as the tale goes. But nobody expected this. All right, so let me ask the question: what other unexpected developments await us as far as surprises that Iran may have? Because I think it's beginning to occur to others, and I've finally seen an article that addresses this. That they're drawing this out as long as they can. All right. So they're going to hold on to as many weapons as they can and use them as sparingly as they can, with a view towards getting rid of, killing as many Americans and Israelis as possible. However, on the other hand, if we're going to be ratcheting it up, as the report goes, that's going to come in different forms. Now, okay, you hear it every time you listen in the news, and you can see and hear the reluctance in their voices, especially one such as Pete Hegseth, about boots on the ground. Well, why are we acting so afraid? I understand the risks. The people who are doing this understand the risks. We don't want to lose any life in this conflict, but if you're going to be facing a determined foe who's going to fight to the death, you know, you're going to have to plan accordingly. And the way they're talking, it's like we don't want to take them on, but we may have no choice. Anyway, I make simple statements about a very complicated situation that has many other facets to it. Haven't even talked about the Kurds, and we haven't even talked about whether or not any sort of groups are being formed up and armed and trained among the civilian population. And those things could easily be going on. So we don't want to talk about them. But you have the government just holding on to everything they got. That's what it comes down to. In any event, let me just grab a couple other things here. I don't want to shift to this, but yes, I shall. All right. See, the people who I like to listen to what I have to say, I am guessing are kind of like-minded. So if I'm reminding you that we are being subjected to stealth jihad by the Islamic community throughout this country, I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. That it needs much more serious attention. Again, I don't feel like I'm telling you anything you don't already know. So let's just see here. The Smerconish admits Democrats are at fault for TSA. Well, yeah, that's true enough. Okay, so just to bring it up, I don't know if you saw this, but there was the mention that they're coming. ICE may be used in place of the TSA to screen passengers for airline flights. So putting ICE agents at the airports because the Democrats refuse to fund DHS and we're the TSA. Well, I'm thinking sweet ironic justice myself. But there's others who say the Democrats are melting down as a result. So I found that kind of interesting. So anyway, the other thing here, if I can just find, there was just, all right, Jason would be helping to move this along very nicely. So this headline here really bothers me. So I wanted to show it to you, all right? So there you go, just peruse that. And it's a case of a Greek publication not making the best use of the English language. But you'll find that the media is kind of misusing words in a way that is clearly, should I say, trying to help the Iranian regime. And says that the missile reached Diego Garcia. Well, the reality is the missile never reached Diego Garcia. And there was 2 missiles, not 1. So Bill Giannopoulos, I understand you guys are on deadline and you need to get these things out as quickly as possible, but no, this is the kind of stuff where it pays to do what I do, which is to go to as many different sources, pull as much stuff in as you can, and compare and contrast. So yeah, so just saying. Just want to make one more point. It's going to be a short one tonight, only because Jason's not here. Let's see here. Let me just read a couple passages here from this article. It says Iranian protesters say revolution is just around the corner. Can't wait to finish the job. Well, I'm not so sure that's true. Of course, we can go back to the somewhat humorous examples I gave last night with Jason about the IRGC soldiers who are hiding out in mosques, hiding out in morgues, okay, and also hightailing it to Afghanistan. All right, they're entitled to do those things. They've made their own decisions. It's a reflection of the fact that the command structure for the IRGC has fallen apart and continues to fall apart more and more. So they're left to make decisions of their own. And others have pointed out that what you could have is a situation. All right, let me back it up just a little bit. There are 2 broad doctrines for command and control. The first would be, quote, hierarchical. And the case in point for hierarchical command and control structure would be, well, America to some extent, but the real model for it, there are 2 models. They would be both Russia and China. So their decision-making process is filtered through the same classical top-down series of decisions. Anything that's at the bottom can't happen until it's approved at the top. So, of course, this slows everything down. And by contrast, in America, certainly has been for some time now, there is an evolution of what I would call infantry doctrine, Marines and Army. And it was it's cast in terms of what they call, I guess, firefight teams. And it used to be that they would have a squad that could be 7, 8, 10 men, And so the concept was, how do you structure decision making and communication in that group? With the objective here is to actually push down the level of final authority, rather than putting the final authority in an officer somewhere in an office far away. The final authority right there on the ground. And they came up with a doctrine for just 3 infantrymen. Okay, that is, if you will, the tactical unit for engagement in the infantry is 3, I guess, reasonably well-armed infantrymen. And then how they communicate, how they can coordinate, the decisions they make are all right there, self-contained. So that had been this is the relatively new thinking. So it turns out that another thing I read suggested that the Iranian government, especially Hezbollah, has shifted from the hierarchical command structure to one that is distributed with final authority resting in certain individual groups. So it's good in the sense that it reduces the risk of leaks about what the operational intentions are. But then if you're going to lose command and control at the top, there's no coordination for the individual units to use. And as a result, they're left there to kind of thrash around on their own. So they each make their own decisions, and those decisions can be inconsistent, let's say, with what other groups are doing. And the nature of the attacks that we're seeing give that appearance in the eyes of some. So this said, if there is no way to modify this distributed form of command and control, it's just going to be a case of them getting picked off one at a time until there's nobody left. And it's called We'll See. Now, I'll have to admit, I did want to do something else tonight with Jason, but I didn't get a chance to discuss it with him, and that is a betting pool. That's right. I was going to talk about a betting pool and to place bets on, let's see, what would be maybe I can pull these up here, maybe not. Oh, shucks. Anyway, the idea was to place odds on when the Straits of Hormuz would be cleared, on when troops would land, on the mainland. Okay, place bets on when there'd be an unconditional surrender, place bets on what's going to happen with respect to the nuclear materials. Now, on that happy note, I just want to not exactly riff, but address it. Again, the press seems to be playing games with this. And there are different versions. All right, so let's take what is the most likely version 1. Maybe the attacks in June didn't destroy everything, but it may have collapsed any tunnels or other structures where the uranium was being destroyed. So as we speak, their uranium supply remains trapped underground. Okay, that's possibility 1. Now, I just want to add, parenthetically, that when you listen to some other pundits, some other experts, some other observers, they like to suggest that maybe that the Iranians actually have possession and that they're not trapped underground. So that's version number 2. Now, version number 2 creates all kinds of problems in my mind in terms of what is really going on, right? If we accept version 1 at face value, okay, they're stuck, it's in the ground, their ace card is buried, their last ace is buried under a bunch of rocks, and they have no access to them, all right? And it's going to take a special effort on our part. And let me just add another parenthetical comment, again, with the press. I don't understand. So they make these comments about how we're going to send special forces in there. It's going to be a heroic commando raid. Dude, if you've got collapsed tunnels, it's not going to be a heroic Whoops, what was that? Now that's all right. There was a reason for that, I'm sure. It's not going to be a heroic rate. It's going to be a big accident, just like that happened there. Okay? There. Big problem, ladies and gentlemen. So no, it's not going to happen. It's going to be Seabees slowly, methodically digging new tunnels to get to the uranium if it's underground. Okay? And if it's a case of the, because we go back to the other report, that a week or so before the attacks back in June, you had satellite photos showing convoys at least one of the facilities, and you had to conclude, well, gee, they must be loading up the uranium. That's entirely possible. And I add another parenthetical thing here. I'm full of parentheses tonight, is that we have the technology. It's been around for a long time, where from air, you can detect if there's something radioactive down there. Okay, the isotopic decay products travel quite a distance, and we have radiation detectors that are sensitive enough to pick them up. Thank you very much. All right, and which raise a question. I want to save that part for later. Okay, so let me raise the other issue here. The way these experts talk, okay, it's like, what's going on with them? Okay, well, there's this one guy, I can't remember him, wherever he was. So he says, well, gee, if the Iranians have 60% refined or purified U-238, can be made into fissile material for bomb. Wow, they just need a couple weeks to get it up to 90%. Really? Well, so maybe you'd like to tell me how long it took them to get to the 60%, and maybe not everything they have is at 60%. If it only takes a couple of weeks to get from 60 to weapons grade, then they would only need so much time to actually have made what they already have into weapons grade. But we don't hear that talk. And then also they talk about, well, they need a plutonium trigger, I believe, to cause the parts to implode and cause the atomic reaction. Okay. I got some advice. If you're making a nuclear weapon, you might want to test it first. And that's not what the Iranians have done. They have not done a test. And if they did, big giveaway. And I would say that puts even more urgency on what we're doing right now. Okay, so this is just a long-winded way of me trying to call BS on everything around this discussion concerning whatever nuclear materials the Iranians may have and their intentions, what to do with it. All right. So I'm still staying in my usual position here. I'm going to say that we can't find it. They don't have it. All right. And where it is, most likely underground, but that wouldn't, why they would have had the convoy and why they wouldn't have taken it before the bombing, I don't have a good explanation. So, and then my third thing I want to float here for your consideration is that the, I'm going to put this, yes, the true last hurrah for the Iranian government will be to launch dirty bombs. All right. Well, dirty bombs are disturbing, and yes, they can cause a lot of damage too, but they're not nuclear explosions. But it's also a reflection of the fact that they would have failed in their attempts to actually create nuclear weapons. Nonetheless, if you come short, dirty bombs still have a role to play in a conflict like this. And if that's the case, ladies and gentlemen, I think it just puts more urgency on what we're doing. And in my opinion, it's interesting. I mean, the Iranians haven't suggested that they have dirty bomb capability, but it should be taken. It would be another thing to consider, because if they are able to launch one last round of missiles into 12 different countries, so they'll be hitting all these different countries with dirty bombs, is to say goodbye and go into the night. what a way to be remembered. Okay. Not exactly that whole 12th Mahdi thing they're talking about, but what a way to be remembered. Anyway, I think I've spoken my part here for now. It's a little bit short, but Jason and I should be back tomorrow night about 9 o'clock, and we'll have a lot to go over. So I hope to see you then.